The Terminator is a chase movie where a young woman is hunted by an android sent from the future, specifically to assassinate her. But what the chase really symbolizes is humanity's attempts to outrun the existential crises that we ourselves have created. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. James Cameron had the idea for the Terminator while he was on the press tour for his first movie, Piranha 2: The Spawning. He'd had a dream about a robotic torso pulling itself along the floor. This led him to develop an idea that was directly inspired by Halloween, a slasher movie where Michael Myers was replaced by an unstoppable machine. As Cameron partnered with another screenwriter and producers, the idea continued to evolve and drew inspiration from many other sources, until it had elements of multiple genres: sci-fi, thriller, action, romance, and still some horror too. The story begins with a scene set in Los Angeles in 2029. It's a post-apocalypse with giant machines firing lasers at human survivors as they try to fight back. Then a block of text tells us the machines rose from the ashes of the nuclear fire. Their war to exterminate mankind had raged for decades, but the final battle would not be fought in the future, it would be fought here in our present tonight. And then we jump to LA in 1984, where a very muscular man suddenly appears. So in the very first minute, the movie directly tells us what it thinks the downfall of humanity will be: nuclear war and advancing technology. When the movie was released in 1984, society was just at the beginning of the personal computer revolution. Consumer-grade computers like the Commodore 64 had recently been released, and the first Apple Macintosh came out that same year. Meanwhile, the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union had reached another high point of tension, with ongoing geopolitical conflicts and the Soviets boycotting the 1984 Olympics being hosted in LA. Nuclear devastation and a robot takeover may seem like pretty standard apocalypse scenarios to us now, but it likely would have felt a lot more timely and even terrifying to audiences at the time. The story then shows us another man appearing in another part of LA at roughly the same time, but there's something different about him. While the first man was sleek, emotionless, and perfect, this one is messy. He's lean, he feels pain, he stumbles, he's scared. But there's an obvious parallel between them as they both carry out the same mission: to find a woman named Sarah Connor. At first, we have no idea why Sarah is important. She seems like a completely average young woman. She works at a diner, has a roommate, gets stood up by her date, nothing special. But even without that knowledge, we start to fear for Sarah as we see what could happen to her. The first man starts hunting down all possible Sarah Connors in the area, and he just happens to find the wrong one. But he doesn't care at all and carries out the assassination with no mercy.
Sarah Connor?
Yes?
By the time two different Sarah Connors have become victims, our Sarah hears about it on the news and calls the police to come and pick her up. She tells them she's being followed, and they tell her to wait in a public area. The second man rescues Sarah, and we finally get some information. The first man isn't actually a man at all.
The Terminator's an infiltration unit. Part man, part machine. Underneath, it's a hyperalloy combat chassis, but outside, it's living human tissue.
Now, there's a bit of irony in casting Arnold Schwarzenegger as someone that's supposed to blend in. As one of the most famous bodybuilders of all time, he's not exactly inconspicuous. James Cameron once said, "It made no sense whatsoever, but the beauty of movies is that they don't have to be logical. They just have to have plausibility. If there's a visceral, cinematic thing happening that the audience likes, they don't care if it goes against what's likely." But to add to the irony, Schwarzenegger wasn't even supposed to be cast in the role. He was initially considered for the role of Kyle Reese, the man that rescues Sarah. Kyle is an actual human raised in a post-apocalyptic world. He's sent back to protect Sarah against the Terminator. The studio forced James Cameron to take a meeting with Schwarzenegger, but Cameron thought he wasn't right for the role and planned to sabotage the meeting by picking a fight with him. Not a physical fight, because that would be a terrible idea, but just to irritate him enough that Schwarzenegger wouldn't be interested. However, Schwarzenegger already wasn't interested in the role of Kyle Reese. He was much more interested in playing the Terminator. And suddenly, it all made sense to Cameron. Imagine how terrifying it would be to be hunted by a man that looks like Arnold. One that can't be bargained with, reasoned with, and has no feeling. So he got the job, but Arnold admitted in later interviews that he still thought it was a
B movie. As a B action movie.
Until he started seeing some of the edited scenes and realized it might be something more.
This is really intense. This is wild.
Kyle Reese goes on to tell Sarah that a few years into the future, the National Defense Computer System known as Skynet will become self-aware and perceive humans as a threat to its existence. So it starts a nuclear war to wipe out humanity. Humanity comes very close to extinction until a man unites the remaining survivors and leads a rebellion against the machines. His name is John Connor, and he's Sarah's future son. At first, Sarah thinks Kyle is crazy, and when the police finally catch her and Kyle, a criminal psychologist confirms that Kyle is delusional. But that all changes when the Terminator arrives at the police station.
I'm a friend of Sarah Connor. I was told that she's here. Could I see her, please?
No, can't see her. She's making a statement.
I'll be back.
I think this is the scene that really convinced audiences that this movie was different. So far, it had been a decent, low-budget action thriller, but when the Terminator busts into a police station filled with cops and proceeds to mow all of them down in an effort to find Sarah, it was obviously a scene that would make or break the movie. Rather than playing it safe, the filmmakers were going for broke. Suddenly, the Terminator lived up to what Kyle had said in his monologue to Sarah.
It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop. Ever.
And this highlights how the Terminator is a really great representation of the real fears of humanity at the time. By 1984, the general public had had plenty of time to face the reality that they now lived in a world where heads of government could choose to wipe us all out with nuclear weaponry. And now, as machines that could perform tasks for you were becoming available for individual purchase, people had to wonder how long it would really take before the acceleration of technology led to another invention that would threaten our existence. So just as the Terminator is a relentless, unstoppable force, the same can be said for our fears about what we've created. Humanity seems determined to self-destruct while calling it progress. We look around and sometimes it might feel like we're just marching toward it. And here it's represented by the literal future coming to chase us down. So what can be done about it? Is there any hope? We find the answer in Sarah Connor's character journey. This is why it's so important that she began the story as a normal person. She and Kyle also do the most human thing possible, the kind of thing you only do if you have hope. They fall in love.
Look at me, I'm shaking. Some legend. You must be pretty disappointed.
No. I'm not. And it's actually their future child that will become John Connor, which means John Connor sent his own father back in time on this mission. It's a paradox. How could John Connor have existed in the first place to send Kyle back in time if Kyle is his own father? Is everything predetermined? Are we fated to do what we do? But that ties right back to those existential fears of humanity. Is it even possible to outrun these threats, or are they inevitable? Kyle's story makes it seem like Sarah is destined for greatness, but she doesn't see it that way. She's scared and inexperienced, but as the story continues, we see her getting stronger. By the end, she becomes the one to save herself. She rises to the occasion out of her desire for survival. Kyle passes on a message from Sarah's future son where he says, "I can't help you with what you must soon face except to say that the future is not set. You must be stronger than you imagine you can be. You must survive or I will never exist." And Sarah lives by those words, refusing to believe that the future has a predetermined outcome. And with all 4 of our movies this month of Movie Club, we saw how chases in movies have been used to entertain and engage us. In Mad Max Fury Road, we saw how the characters were pursuing their need for redemption and hope only to realize that they had to create it themselves. In The Fugitive, we saw how a character dynamic between an officer of the law chasing a wanted criminal illustrated the difference between the letter of the law and true justice. In North by Northwest, we saw Alfred Hitchcock turn several genres on their head by making a chase film where the protagonist often doesn't know who he's chasing, or who's chasing him, or why, but the way in which that information is revealed to the audience makes for a compelling story. And in The Terminator, a normal woman is hunted down by a dangerous robot from a post-apocalyptic future, serving as a representation of humanity's seemingly inescapable fears. By the end of the story, she faced those fears by choosing to love, to be strong, and to survive in spite of them. And that story only continues to become more interesting in one of the greatest sequels of all time. Truth be told, you kind of watch The Terminator so that you can watch Terminator 2. But for now, that wraps up our July Movie Club. Tomorrow, I'll be announcing the theme and lineup for August, so stay tuned. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.